everybody and welcome back. Today we'll dive into creating visual art using Python with the processing framework. Specifically, we'll explore 2D primitives and basic shapes that we can draw on our sketch window. So let's get started. First, we need to create a canvas. A canvas is a drawing area where we can create our visual art. Think of it as your drawing paper. To create a canvas in processing, we'll use the built-in size function. Now, what is a function and how do you use it? We'll cover functions in more detail in our future lessons, where we will create our own custom functions. But for now, I want you to get familiar with the syntax first and how to use some predefined functions that processing framework provides us. A function is a very useful tool in programming that is used to perform a specific task such as drawing a shape or changing the color or creating a canvas. So let's create a canvas with a size of 700 by 500 window. To use any function, you simply write the function name followed by opening parentheses. After the opening parentheses, we pass some details about the things that we want it to do. In this case, we want it to create a canvas of size 700 by 500. The size function as of now doesn't know what dimensions of canvas we want. So we need to pass this information somehow to this function. So we can do this by passing the width and the height of the canvas right after the opening parentheses and separating them by a comma. Finally, we close the parentheses to tell the function that we are done passing details to it. These details are called arguments or parameters of the function. The size function takes two arguments, the width and the height. The first argument represents the width of the canvas and the second represents the height of the canvas. Now go ahead and hit the run button at the top left corner of the screen and you should see a gray 700 by 500 size display window appear. Now this window is our canvas where we can draw shapes and create visual art. You can adjust this canvas size by changing the arguments of the size function. Next, let's move on and let's draw some shapes on the canvas. We'll start with a rectangle. To draw a rectangle, we use the rect function in processing, just like the size function. Now, this function also takes arguments. In fact, most functions in processing takes arguments to perform their tasks. The rect function actually takes 4 arguments. The first two specify the location of the rectangle where it will be drawn on the canvas, and the third and fourth specify its width and height. Think of canvas as a graph paper, where the top left corner of the paper has the location of 0. That is, it is 0 units from the left of the canvas and 0 units from the top of the canvas. So the first location is called the x coordinate, and the second location is called the y coordinate. So let's set x coordinate to 100. The y coordinate to 150, the width to 200, and the height to 300. Now hit the run button and you should see a rectangle on the canvas. Notice that the rectangle is 100 units from the left of the canvas and 150 units from the top of the canvas. Also note that the width and height of the rectangle are 200 and 300 units respectively. Next, let's see how we can color this rectangle. Let's close this current canvas window and go back to our sketch file. To do this, we use the fill function. This function can be used in many different ways depending on the color system you are using. There are 3 ways to specify color in processing: RGB, HSB, and hexadecimal. In this video, we'll look at the hexadecimal color system, which is the most common way to specify color in processing. For hexadecimal color, you only need to pass a single argument, the 6-digit value predefined with a hash wrapped in quotes. The reason we pass the value in quotes is because the fill function expects this value to be passed as a string and not as a number. Anytime you want to pass a string to a function, you need to wrap it in quotes. And this is another important concept in programming that we will cover in our future lessons. We don't need to remember the hex value for any color. To find the hexadecimal value of a color, you can use the color picker tool in processing. Click on the Tools menu at the top left corner of the screen and select Color Selector. You will see a color picker tool like this. You can select any color you want, copy the hex value and paste it into your fill function. After pasting the color value, run the code and you should see a color rectangle on the canvas. It doesn't seem to be working. Why is that? That brings us to another important concept in programming, that is the order of the code execution. The order in which your code is written matters because the computer reads and runs your code from top to bottom. In programming, this is called the flow of control. So when you run your code, the computer reads the code line by line from top to bottom. In this case, the size function is run or executed first. Execution means the computer reads the code and performs the task specified by the function. Then the rect function is executed, which draws a rectangle on the canvas. Because the fill function is written after the rect function, it is executed after the rectangle is drawn. And this means the rectangle is drawn with the default fill color, which is white, because we didn't specify any color before drawing the rectangle. So to make sure that rectangle is drawn with the color we want, we need to call the fill function before the rect function. So let's cut the fill function and paste it before the rect function. Now run the code again and you should see a colored rectangle on the canvas. Great! You have successfully created your first colorful shape. Now let's draw another rectangle and fill it with a different color. As you might have guessed by now, that we will need to call the fill function before the rect function to color that rectangle. So choose a color of your choice for the fill. And for this rectangle, I'll set the x coordinate to 50, the y coordinate to 100, and both the width and the height to 150. So hit the run button and then see the results. Now we have two rectangles on the canvas. So let's move on to drawing a sphere. There are two ways to do this. You can use the rect function with equal width and height, or you can use the sphere function which takes three arguments, x, y, and extent. The first two arguments are the same as rectangle function that specify the location of the sphere's upper left corner. And the third argument specifies the width and the height. Since it is a sphere, these are equal. Let's also make the sphere transparent by calling the no-fill function in processing, which is used to draw shapes with no fill color. It doesn't take any arguments. So hit the run button and you should see a transparent sphere on the canvas. I'm not actually satisfied with the default black outline of these shapes. It is a bit dull to me. So let's change the outline color using the stroke function, which takes the same arguments as the fill function. So let's give it a white color and run the code to see how it looks. Can you guess where and what place in the code we should call this stroke function? Since we want to change the outline color of all the shapes, we should call the stroke function before drawing any shapes. So this means we should call the stroke function before the rect function. So let's run the code and see how it looks. It's there but not very visible. So let's make the outline thicker. And we can do this by the stroke weight function, which takes a single argument, which represents the thickness of the outline. The bigger the number is, the thicker the outline would be. So I'll set it to 7 pixels and run the code again. This looks much better now. If you prefer the default outline color of the shape, you can just even skip that part of the code that changes the outline color and thickness. The way to skip a part of your code is by commenting it out. So to comment out a line, you simply start with a hash. This tells Python to ignore the line when running the code. And if you run your code now, you should see the shapes with the default outline color and the thickness. I like the white outline color and thickness of the shape, so I'll keep it that way. And that is all for today. I hope you have learned something new. Now there's a little task for you to try. Try drawing a rectangle and a circle on the canvas and fill them with red and green colors. To know what exact function and arguments you need to use, go to the processing reference page and search for the function that will help you draw these shapes. And I'll link the reference page in the description below. Keep learning and take care.